Well, good day, and welcome to another Tuesday with Thom, brought to you by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl consults with utilities, higher ed institutions, associations, and large nonprofits to customize solutions that support your bottom line. It is Tuesday, November the 10th, and come January the 20th, 2021, the day before my next birthday, we will have a new president. And that's a birthday present I'm glad to take. And since we have the coach today, Coach Bruce Pearl, I'd like to frame my comments in this opening monologue in terms of athletics and what it can teach us about life. As a younger man, I was an athlete. There's so much athletics can teach you about life. There's so much athletics taught me about life. I learned from my days as an athlete that you win with dignity. I also learned that sometimes you lose, and you have to lose with dignity. If you know you've given it your best, you congratulate your opponent and you move on to the next game or to the next opportunity in life that you may face. Sometimes that is hard. I lost games, man, where I cried like a baby. But you learn in athletics that facing difficult times can make you stronger. It can help to build your character. You learn what it means to put it all on the line, and then sometimes you just come up short. But hopefully you grow. And these are the lessons for the young people who are watching today, who are watching what goes on. These are the lessons for the next generations. You don't blame others. You don't come up with conspiracy theories. Bear Bryant, one of the greatest college football coaches ever, said that when you walk off the field or the court or whatever it may be, people shouldn't be able to tell if you won or lost based on your actions towards the other team. You win with dignity. You lose with dignity. Another side of that coin, in my opinion, it would be great if the news media would lighten up a little bit. Give us more news and a little less opinion. Are we as divided a country as we are being portrayed? I feel the continued cry of division eventually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Red states, blue states. We have different opinions. We believe in different things. It doesn't make you divided. I disagree sometimes with the people I work with. I disagree sometimes with my wife, but we're not divided. We're human beings. Hopefully, we're intelligent human beings with opinions, hopefully based in intelligence, science, and whatever the case may call for. So again, we teach our children and our grandchildren how to behave. Wisdom, integrity, intelligence, knowing and following the facts are what we should be striving for. And this morning, that's how I see it. Now, let me say our audience participation day last Tuesday went very well. I apologize to those of you whose comments we didn't get on. We will do better. Today, we got Barbara Wallace-Edwards and Michael Walker are here again. And our G-list guest today is Auburn basketball coach Bruce Pearl. There's quite a bit of interest in Coach Pearl being here with us, so we're going to move us along so when Coach comes on, we got more time to talk to him. So if you got questions for Coach, please send them to us and we'll try and get everybody on. So let me introduce my two roundtable guests, Barbara Wallace-Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace-Edwards, of course, is from Birmingham, Alabama. She's an Auburn graduate. And Barbara, how are you this morning and what's going on with you?
Good morning, Thom. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Life's good. Life's
Very good.
What's happening? Go ahead.
I'm having a great week so far, and of course I enjoyed last week as well. Excited about our guest today, Coach Pearl. You know, basketball season is one of my favorite times of the year. I love basketball, and since Coach Pearl has been there, I'm really loving Auburn basketball. So it's great. And I want to give a shout out to another friend of mine who sent me another gift this week. I'm just being bombarded with gifts. My friend Cynthia Ellis Evans from Bowie, Maryland, made this handmade Auburn Afghan blanket for me, and just want to give a shout out to her. She sent this in the mail. Such a wonderful surprise to receive that this week. So I'm having a great week so far.
That's great. That is
Yes.
really cool. Okay, and Michael Walker. Michael Walker's from Atlanta, Georgia. Lives in Atlanta, Georgia. He's president of the Walker Agency, a full-service insurance brokerage. Michael, welcome.
Good morning, Tom. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning.
Good
How are you
morning.
today?
We're doing great. What's happening with you?
Well, today is Tuesday, Tom, as you know, because it's Tuesdays with Tom. But also, what's important is the fact that the Supreme Court today will hear cases to abolish or rule unconstitutional the Obamacare health plan, or the technical term is Affordable Care Act. And it's going to be interesting because, Amy Coney Barrett was just sworn in, and there was concern about how she felt about the Affordable Care Act. At the center of this all and what they will be ruling on is the penalty tax. Originally, Obamacare had a penalty tax in there for people that did not sign up for health care or did not get health care, which was tied with the individual mandate. And I have you note, this is the third time in 8 years the case has been brought before the Supreme Court to try to be ruled unconstitutional.
Yeah, I thought they ruled on that provision.
They did rule on that provision. They took away the tax, reduced the tax to zero, is what they did. But now the people that are pushing it, certain people on the Republican side are saying that if you don't have the penalty, then there's no need to have the Affordable Care Act, because now you've done away with the individual mandate, and you've eliminated the penalty. So that makes the whole law unconstitutional because it was predicated on the fact that there was a tax which made it a federal law. That's what their argument will be.
Well, you probably know how I feel about it, so I don't think why you would take in. What are you going to replace it with? That's the thing, and they've never come up with a replacement. And there's so many people that need insurance in the country. When I grew up, when my dad worked, you had your health care through the company. But that's not the way things are anymore. And so you're pretty much responsible for going out and finding your own health care, which is tough, in my opinion.
That is true. And we don't expect to have a decision until probably next summer. They're just hearing arguments.
Right.
Now, and then they'll later make a decision. There are some different ways that it can go. It could be that they rule that it's still constitutional, even though you don't have the penalty tax, even though that's the argument of people that are opposed. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Supreme Court will rule that way, or they could just strike it down altogether. Or, once President-elect Biden takes office, he could maybe do some things through executive order or what have you. So there's a lot of different things that could happen with that. But what is at stake is probably close to 20 million people or more of losing coverage if the law were to be struck down.
Wow.
And losing coverage at a time when they really need it with this pandemic, that's just really sounding that they're actually even considering striking it down.
I've always said that we should all have the same insurance that our Congress people have, or they should have the insurance that we have. And then I think the vote would be different.
It would be.
I think, and I mean, I'm not altogether certain on this, but I think you can go to Congress for 2 years and you pretty much get insurance for the rest of your life.
That's true.
And I don't know if that, I may be wrong on that, but if that's the case, man, come on, this is out of whack then.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things are out of whack. I agree with you on that, but I think also when you talk about the relief and the stimulus money, you still have people out here hurting.
I agree.
Sit up there and play politics and not do anything to help people. I think their pay should be taken away from them until they come up with a stimulus. Okay.
True.
And
there is no, and you're right. There aren't any repercussions for not working for the people. You know, you can
Right.
work for the people and you can work for the politicians. And right now, our
Right.
politicians work for the politicians.
Politicians.
They don't necessarily work for the people, and the people are so divided when maybe we're aiming that division at the wrong people.
True.
Yeah,
It's kind of like we're being played.
exactly, exactly. You know, and we're pointing fingers at each other. The Republicans pointing fingers at the Democrats, and so on and so forth. And but to say that we all should have the same insurance, then they throw out the S word and everybody runs away.
Right.
And the S word being socialism. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody, I doubt if you walked up to the average person on the street and asked them to define socialism, if they could even define it.
They couldn't.
You know? But it's the booger man now, and I'm not saying we should have it. I'm just saying we should have what they have, and then I
Right.
think they would vote differently. So we've got anything else about that? Anything you guys else want to say, Michael? You got anything else about the insurance? And
Well, the only thing I will say is, in addition to paying attention to that, I would encourage people to get involved with their local officials. You always hear the word that
you're
politics
right.
is local, okay? And different states have the opportunity to impact healthcare reform for its own citizens. I have been very instrumental here in Georgia in working with the governor and his staff, because he's coming up with something called the 1332 waiver, a reinsurance program. And I have been working with them to try to make sure that, one, agents and brokers are involved in the process so that we can help guide the people into the type of plans that they need. Originally, when the plan came out, they were going to bypass agents and brokers and leave them out of the process. We did not have a seat at the table, and it was going to direct people from healthcare.gov to web brokers or directly to carriers here in Georgia. So in other words, those people that sign up for healthcare.gov that are Georgia citizens, it was going to capture them when they got ready to re-enroll and then send them straight to web brokers and carriers to get their own insurance without the advice and consult of an independent agent and broker. And so I worked behind the scenes and lobbied to get it written in there that they could also go to an independent broker and agent. And that's just the first step. And then from that, we'll work to make sure that there are decent plans out there and that the consumers are taken care of. So I said that to say that you have to get involved on a local level in order to fix this problem.
Okay, Barbara, you got any further comments?
Not on that particular topic, Thom, but I've been keeping up with the coronavirus numbers, and right now the total cases in the United States is over 10 million cases.
Wow.
And we've had 239,000 deaths right now, and just in the state of Alabama alone, 205,000 cases of coronavirus and 3,084 deaths so far. So it's just a really sad time for people possibly to lose their insurance, when this type of situation is going on.
Well, and this was sort of predicted back in the summer that there would be a wave. I don't know if it's another wave or new wave or what have you in the fall. And certainly we seem to be hit with that right now. And hopefully there's going to be some type of coordinated federal response.
Well, we know that Pfizer announced that they have a vaccine that is 90% effective.
Right.
And, the word is that it could be available by the end of this year, know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a glimmer of hope, from that standpoint. It comes in 2 doses, and it has to be maintained at a certain temperature, and supposedly there's like 100 million doses ready to go out. And some of the other companies, from what I understand, are taking the same steps and process as Pfizer to develop a vaccine, which basically attacks the gene, or when they put it in, when they submit, when they use it and inoculate you with it, it attacks the gene that then goes and destroys the coronavirus.
So let me do this because we're going to react here to when Coach comes on. So I'm going to go on and do our commercial right now, and then if Coach is not on when the commercial's over, we'll come back and do some more roundtable until Coach comes on. So can you play the commercial for me, please? Let's. Today's show is sponsored by Best Girl Inc. What is Best Girl? Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Our clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. We have a team of consultants led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam and Miss Emily Hedrick, and they partner with business and education business clients to promote organizational effectiveness and education, motivation, and leadership. Our customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communications, executive coaching, fundraising, and some economic development. All right. Okay. Well, welcome back. Welcome back. So, Michael, I'm sorry to have cut you off. Were you finished with that? There's always this talk of, well, if they come up with something, I'm not going to take it anyway.
Right.
How do you guys feel about that? Are you going to take it?
I don't plan on taking it, at least for a while, Thom. I'm going to let some other people try it out. Maybe give it a year's time and see how everyone else does.
A year's time.
Well, a year's time.
Yeah, at least a year, maybe more.
I think some people are going to trade off with you just so they can go outside again, or go to a restaurant or what have you. And and of course it's all been tied back to the economy, that
Right.
we can't really have one without the other. So we keep trying to, we open the schools, you close the schools, you're playing football this week and now you got to cancel the games again.
Yes.
There's a whole lot of uncertainty.
Absolutely. I don't know if you saw it, Thom, but the LSU and the Auburn and Mississippi State game was canceled for this. It's going to be postponed. That was scheduled for it to play this Saturday. So it's affecting a lot of college football games for certain.
Yeah, and seemingly, well, and I can maybe affecting more college than it is professional, but you got a little more control on the professional level, I think, because these guys are playing for their living, and
right.
I think they probably take the quarantine maybe. Well, they can be quarantined easier, I think.
Yes.
Than others. Okay, well, let's Coach isn't here yet, but we'll move on to our next segment and we'll talk about Coach even though he's not here. So Bruce Pearl has been at Auburn for 6 years. He has, let me see, I wrote this down. He has, well, you know what I want to do? I want to talk about, Coach has always been a big promoter. And when he was at Tennessee, he hasn't done this at Auburn, but we'll have to ask him about this. When he was at the University of Tennessee, he attended a Lady Vols game. That's when Pat Summitt was there, and the Lady Vols were winning championships every year. He attended a Lady Vols game with his upper body painted orange. And he and a few of his players spelled out Vols. Pearl, he was the V. And he stood in front of the student section and cheered for the Lady Vols as they came out. Of course, this got national media attention. It brought national attention to the Tennessee program, and it highlighted efforts to support collegiate athletics. It really was a, stunt, you may want to say, to help promote women's basketball, which was something that he was big on. And then later on for the senior night for the men's team, Pat Summitt came out dressed as a cheerleader and complete with the uniform and led the crowd in a rendition of Rocky Top. It was the 7th largest crowd in school history as they beat number 4 ranked Florida Gators. So he's obviously a promoter, and I know that they've been talking about. I think last year they played a game in the street, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was. I don't know if it was a full game, but they basically did some type of exhibition there at Toomer's Corner in Auburn. So yeah, it was a fun time for everybody.
Well,
big crowd.
I'd go back. You talked about like in basketball in high school. I grew up with Birmingham basketball, and man, I mean, these guys were guys who went on and played in college, and three of them played in the pros. But man, it was fast. It was man to man. It was hustling. It was great. It was just schools like Hayes High School, Carver High School, Parker High School. Oh man, it was great basketball. And even at John Carroll, I went to Catholic school, we had some great basketball. So for Coach to bring that to Auburn has been really, 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 really special.
Yes, that's exciting. And Tom, I don't know if you realized it. Did you hear that Eddie Johnson, former basketball star at Auburn, passed away?
I did see that. I did see
he passed away, age of 65. Very sad.
Fast Eddie, we called him.
Fast Eddie.
I was there when he was there, and I think he was a freshman when I was a senior. But he was an incredible basketball player. He really, really was. Michael and I were talking about that, and he had that fast first step, and he had almost like a two-handed push shot. Yeah. But he was an incredible basketball player, and Eddie was there when Auburn put together some really good teams. I remember, I think as a freshman, he was the leading scorer, and Pepto Bolden was the lead rebounder.
Yes. We were there during those days, so yes, we remember it well.
Yeah. Who was the coach name? Bob
Davis.
Bob Davis.
Yeah.
Bob Davis.
Dr. Bob. I think he was
Dr.
a PhD or something.
Yeah. I have to tell you, Eddie was a equally talented trash talker as well on the basketball court.
I remember that as well.
Oh yeah.
It seems like the more trash he talked, the better he played. That's what.
Okay. Okay. Well, listen, Coach Pearl is here with us, so we're going to bring Coach on. He is. Let me just say, Coach has produced, if not the biggest turnaround in the entire college basketball landscape, he has produced one of the biggest. In 6 years as head coach at Auburn, he's led the Tigers to 125 wins, 2 SEC championships, back-to-back NCAA tournament berths, and the program's first ever appearance in the Final Four. And he is one of just 3 head coaches to take 4 programs to the Sweet 16. And what I will add is that Coach has always made himself available to Auburn fans. He is a true man of the people. Coach, welcome. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Tom. It's great to be with you and with Michael and Barbara and War Eagle.
War Eagle. Coach, I got to say this now. 6 years ago, you came to Auburn. You've won 125 games. You've won the SEC a couple of times. You've been to back-to-back tournaments. You came to Auburn. And I've always been an Auburn basketball fan. I was an Auburn basketball fan when there would be just a few of us in the stands. Let me put it that way. So what did you envision when you came 6 years ago? What did you think you could do with the program?
Well, Tom, thank you. And that's a great question, a great way to start. I looked at Auburn and how excellent it was, like at everything it was doing, except we weren't competitive in men's basketball. So there had to be something to it. And obviously, men's basketball wasn't holding up its end. So I had a confidence, not knowing anything about our team or what was returning, that if they could do it and everything else at Auburn, it could be done. And that's kind of what my launching pad was, I'll be honest, when I was coaching at Tennessee, I thought Auburn was a private school. I honestly did. I thought Alabama was the state school. And, Auburn was named after the town, and a lot of private schools are named after their town. It looked like a private school. It felt like it's, and I would say that as a compliment in many ways. And it's an amazing place, and I'm blessed to be able to coach here.
Let me ask you, so we look back 6 years. Now let's look ahead 6 years. And where do you see us going? Where do you see you? Where you going? What are you going to predict for me?
I can say this: it's a lot easier to get it going than it is to keep it going. Okay,
Yeah.
And that's true in life, and it's true in a lot of things. First of all, just again, kind of looking back, great coaches, great student athletes, hard workers. We recruited, culture and character, work ethic. A belief, a family, the Auburn family. We kind of went to work every day. What would God have us do? And we sort of built it along those lines, and got our student athletes to do the same thing. And, obviously, being a community servant, and I can't do anything without support of our community. So it was easy to plug into Auburn. And I think also, Thom, being 60 years old now, I came here, I guess 6 or 7 years ago, 2014. And man, this is it for me. I mean, we were invested. My family is here. My son is my right-hand man here at Auburn as on my staff. He is engaged to be married. He's going to start a family here in Auburn. This is it. So what does the next 6 years look like? You're looking at it, just to try to continue to have a competitive basketball program.
So speaking of that, I mean, you guys have had some great years, and it's just been so wonderful and so exciting. And, I was telling them, I grew up in basketball in Birmingham. Man, they played basketball, and it was great and it was wonderful. And it's kind of like you guys are bringing that back with the excitement from the crowd and the run and gun, get up and down the floor. That's the kind of basketball everybody likes. So, but I got to ask you this. So as great as it's been, starting out this season, you guys are unranked. What is that a motivating thing for you? Is it a motivating thing for the players?
No, it's not. It's a reality of the fact that we've lost 11 players in the last 2 years that were on that Final Four team. I lost 5 great players a year ago off the Final Four team, including, Jared Harper and Bryce Brown and Chumo Kiki, guys, Malik Dunbar, Horace Spencer, 5 guys that were household names. And then this past season, we had another great team. We were 25-6. We won the first 15 games of the year. We were kind of poised to maybe make another run in the NCAA tournament. I had 5 seniors and a freshman named Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro came to Auburn as a top 40 high school player, a 4-star, not a McDonald's All-American. He left here, and he's going to be drafted in the top 10 of the NBA draft. Wow. The draft night is on November 18th. So I lose my top 5, then I lose my top 6. Wow. And so we are all freshmen and sophomores. We're a brand new team. I really like my guys. I really like their future. I know we're going to be extremely challenged this year. We've got to get some experience. It's a classic rebuilding year. But I really like the way the kids are working, the way they're training. It's just going to be, we're going to have to be a team. We're going to see where we're at early, and we're probably going to get slapped around a little bit, and then hopefully we'll grow and get better.
I think the thing about basketball too, just loving it over the years is you got those 20, 30 games. So you kind of got time to see it in waves. That's hard to explain sometimes in the middle of the season when you're talking to fans. But it does come and go so that you peak at the right time.
Well, I think, look, I've always just believed in being honest with our fan base and not over promising. We're going to play hard. We're going to compete. We'll be challenged this year in the SEC, regardless of how much we get better, because there's a lot of seniors, a lot of guys back. This whole COVID thing really changed the landscape of college basketball in this sense. There were a lot of guys that would have gone into the NBA draft and stayed in the draft had the draft been in June. But because of COVID and because of how late the NBA season was, and the delays in the starting of next year, and colleges basically getting back to work in the summertime, a lot of kids just went back to school that would have gone into the NBA draft. Okay. Well, we didn't have any of those guys. We lost 5 seniors. So it's sort of built that way. But I mean, look, we're going to still run. We're going to still play fast. We're still going to be exciting to watch. And our guys are going to know that virtually every one of the guys that they're going to see this year will be back on the team next year.
Okay. I want to ask you one more question, then we're going to get Michael and Barbara on. But let's talk about COVID and its effect on the team and what you guys have been doing this summer.
You know, Tom, I've always said that if you have an opportunity to hire a student athlete, hire him or her. And I'll tell you why. They get up earlier than the rest of the students. That's no knock on the rest of the students, but they got a full-time job. They've got to get up early and have a morning workout. They got to eat three a day. They go to class all day long. In between classes are mentors, tutors, strength and conditioning. Then they got to go to practice. Then they got to watch film. Then they got to go back at night and do some homework. And they got to do that for 5-6 days a week. They know how to work hard. They know how to have discipline in their life. They're not afraid to fail. They've been challenged. They've been under pressure. They're ready to go out there. They know what it's like to be a part of a team and make an organization better and work together. I'm just telling you, they're so prepared to be able to have success, out there in the real world. So as a result of COVID, our kids have had to be socially distant. Our guys have had to been masked up diligently. We've got a completely different testing protocol to keep our kids safe and away from the virus, so on and so forth. You could do everything right and still get this virus. When you get it, it's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. Mm-hmm. But we haven't had a positive COVID test since July 4th.
Oh, that's great.
Now, that means we're due. And that means that, I'm not trying to jinx us a little bit. But it speaks to the discipline, I think, of these 18 and 19-year-old kids that are having to stay socially distanced on a campus of, 30-some thousand students. Mm-hmm. I think it says a lot about how hard they're working, how much this basketball means to them. And so we've been able to practice and prepare and it started off with one guy, one ball, one basket, everybody socially distant. We're still not in our locker room. We're not able to eat across from one another, and nobody can get into practice. We're doing the best job we can to bubble up as much as we can.
Oh, wow. That's I guess that's just hard to even imagine. Just hearing you describe it, I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but in terms of practice, the locker room, I didn't think about it. You couldn't go in the locker room.
Tom, what they're saying is it's not so much when the guys are playing against each other and they're having contact. If somebody has the virus, it's actually when they're sitting across one another having a meal or having a conversation indoors for any particular period of time. So we've got them spread out and we're just trying to do things like that. For me, high school seniors last year and this year's college freshmen, last year's college seniors and this year's first year employment folk, man, that group right there, that 18, 19-year-old crowd and that 22, 23-year-old crowd who are making those transitions from high school to college or from college to the real world. You talk about a tough time to have to go through COVID. I feel badly for our freshmen who haven't had that same college experience, just because there's very little social, going on.
Yeah. That's incredible. Let me bring Michael and Barbara on, Coach, and they got some questions for you as well. And Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara, you got questions for Coach?
I do. First, I have a comment for Coach. Coach, I want to say I shared with everyone earlier. I am a huge basketball fan, and of course, an even bigger Auburn basketball fan, and a Coach Pearl fan. So I'm so excited about our season this year and what we've done in the past. But I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers want to know about, has any decision been made about how many spectators will be allowed at each game, and will tickets be available to the games?
Yeah, thanks, Barb. That is a great question. And that is something that is on everybody's mind. And because the schedule now is just sort of coming together and there are a lot of, moving parts. Obviously, Auburn was supposed to play Mississippi State in football here in November, and now we're going to be playing them on December 12th because of some COVID. So we've got a lot of moving parts. But I think that we're going to be down to about 20% of our seating capacity, roughly speaking, and we're going to be configuring the arena in such a way to keep pods of families and pods of people, 2s and 4s, 6 feet away from one another. Everybody will be masked up. The perimeter on the floor will look a lot different. The jungle won't be able to be down there on the floor in close proximity to the student athletes to protect the student athletes and the officials. So there's all kinds of rules about how far everybody needs to stay away, from one another to protect our visitors and their players. So we're going to do the best we can first off to accommodate students. That's number one, to make sure that our student body has got the chance to come in. The second priority would be our top donors. And with one caveat, one of the things that I've asked Alan Green, our athletic director, to do when they are evaluating this was this: rather than taking tickets away from every season ticket holder for the entire season, to be able to offer them a few games, at least some games, so that nobody gets to be told you can't come to any.
I agree.
Hopefully they'll understand, look, we're cutting our capacity down. You can't come to most, but you can come to some. And I'm hoping our fan base will understand that.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sure they will. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Coach. I don't know. We got a comment here. It says, "What a great ambassador for Auburn. What a great guy to have as a member for these young guys." So you're great compliment. Here's another one. Love Coach Pearl and his energy. Great coach.
Yeah.
So Michael, what about you? What do you got for Coach?
Well, good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Michael.
I want to say to you, I know that the staff and everybody calls you BP, but I have a different name for you. And people like you in the business world, we call them turnaround artists. And that's what you have done since you've come to Auburn. You have turned it around. My first question is, I wanted to ask you about practicing. And I want to ask, are the players practicing with masks on? And the reason why I asked that, my daughter is a coach at the University of Delaware, and we were talking about practicing. And she said that the players are practicing with masks on, and they'll go for like 15, 20 minutes, and then they give them a break to take the mask off and breathe. So I wonder what you're doing practice.
Well, Michael, the Blue Hens might be practicing with masks on, but the Auburn Tigers are unmasked.
Okay.
No,
the Delaware Blue Hens. Okay.
Yes, he's right. That's their name.
No, because the kids aren't going to be playing with masks, and so they're not practicing with them. Now the coaches have got masks on. So can you believe that I'm going to have to, with as much as I yell and scream and holler and call out plays and changes of defenses, I'm going to have to have my mask on. And of course, my mask is never very far away from me, right? So this is going to be what I'm going to look like on a sideline, maybe. I don't know.
Okay. One other question I'd like to ask you, and I have several more, but in football, the Auburn football team, they've played schools like HBCU schools like Alabama State, Alabama A&M. I was just wondering, are there any plans or thoughts for Auburn to play like Tuskegee or some of the schools surrounding, just from a community type standpoint, and get people?
Yeah, I think it makes sense, and I think Auburn is definitely looking for ways to collaborate with schools like Tuskegee. They're right down the road. There's a lot of things that we can learn from one another, and a lot of collaboration, and provide diversity for both campuses. So yes, I do think there is some talk about maybe a tournament, maybe Alabama and Auburn being in a tournament with a couple of schools, either in Birmingham or in Huntsville, or even having those teams come to campus. So, back in the day, you still have it right now, but in order to get the tournament, you have to play schools that have a certain rating as far as their RPI. And some of those schools don't play a strong enough schedule where they'll hurt your strength of schedule and get you in the NCAA tournament. But I do believe that they're working on some formulas that allow us to be able to play those schools and not have it count against our RPI and do some things in the preseason. Obviously, with COVID, that got put on a little bit of hold this year. But yes, Michael, it's definitely something that we're looking forward to doing.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Good deal. Barbara, you got anything else?
And Coach, I was just going to say, I know that the team is rather young. You don't have any seniors on the team at all, but you talked a little bit about that. But who do you see as being the standout player from maybe from some of the returning players from last year?
Well, I think from the guys that return, we had 5 freshmen last year. Alan Flanagan, Devin Cambridge, and Jalen Williams were the 3 freshmen who played some last year. And we're talking about 8 to 12 minutes a game, roughly speaking. All 3 of those guys are going to have major impact on our team this year. And then Babatunde Akingbola, we call him Stretch. It's a lot easier than calling him Babatunde.
Yeah.
He didn't play a lot, but he'll play some this year for us. And he plays hard, and he's got great spirit and really good defensive player. And then Tyrell Jones, we call him Turbo. He didn't play a lot last year because he came in with a stress fracture and was behind some senior guards. He'll play. So all 5 of my freshmen from a year ago who are sophomores, 3 of whom played some, 2 didn't play at all. Those guys will all be major factors on this year's team, as well as 2 juniors and 5 incoming freshmen. We got 12 guys on scholarship right
now. Wow. Yeah, I'm really excited about seeing Sharif Cooper play. So that's going to be great.
Sharif is a dynamic player. And I think the thing that gets lost when you're talking about Sharif is, when he was a high school freshman, he was really small and hadn't developed yet. He had something special, you could tell, but obviously he was so undersized that going into high school, he was really physically challenged. We saw it. We embraced it. We were one of the very first schools to offer him and recruit him before he was even ready. But I had Jared Harper, and I knew what an impact that little man, who sometimes could be the toughest, strongest man on the floor, just because he's the smallest guy by height, don't mean he ain't tough, and don't mean he ain't strong and powerful. And that's who Jared was, and that's who Sharif is. And I think the other thing, too, is self-made players, in the sense that, look, there are only 5 or 6 guys in the NBA that size right now. Only 5 or 6 guys. And yet that didn't stop Jared Harper from becoming one of those guys. And so they've had to work harder than the other guys. And so I admire that. So even though Sharif, as a junior, was the player of the year in high school because his team won the national championship, they went undefeated, and he aspired to be a great high school player. My first McDonald's All-American. I've never had one here at Auburn. What gets lost in that is how hard he's had to work and how hard his family has had to work for him to be such a great player.
Yes. Thank you.
Coach, you've got it had been a long time since Auburn had put some guys in the NBA or in professional basketball. And you've been able to do that. And I think I say that because if the NBA is here and then recruiting is here, and in between you build a program. I mean, building a program is more than winning games. It's the continued effect year after year. And so can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yep. Well, Thom, listen, what brings to mind when you ask that question, we've graduated 29 guys in the last 6 years from our basketball program. That's the most in the SEC. Wow. For the last 4 years, Auburn has had a perfect academic performance rating, APR, 1,000, perfect. 90% of the college basketball programs don't have 1,000. Only 10% do. And we've had it for 4 straight years. That speaks to the discipline. That speaks to the culture. That speaks to what's capable at Auburn. It takes a village, this tiny little beautiful village. It takes motivated student athletes, talented faculty, a hardworking student support system that allows our student athletes to have incredible success. you tie that discipline into what we do on the floor and practice and how we play. And then you point to guys like Jared Harper, who's with the New York Knicks. Chumo Kiki was drafted 16th by the Orlando Magic, not a McDonald's All-American, not supposed to be in the NBA after 2 years in college. And then Isaac Okoro, who is going to be our first one and done. There's a chance he goes to the top 5 players in this year's NBA draft. And we hadn't had a pro at Auburn since the early 2000s. I want to say maybe 2003. That's a long time, without an NBA player. And by far, we were in a situation that we were at the bottom of our league. And now, obviously now we're competitive.
We were always in, when it came time to the SEC tournament, we were always in that play-in game, and we played in and played out and came back home.
Yeah.
So we've obviously made a lot of progress.
Well, you know what? I've been there. I've been in that situation too. And one of the things I want to do is I want to compliment my very first team here at Auburn. That year we finished. I want to say, I don't even know. We might have had 12. I don't even know how many teams in the league. We had maybe 12 teams back then. I don't think A&M and Missouri were in the league my first year. I just don't think they were. But we might have finished. We played in that play-in game.
Yeah.
And you know what? We won 4 games with a team that looked like they were a JV team versus varsity. But we had KT Harrell, the lead scorer in the SEC, and he had a phenomenal tournament and didn't quit. The kids hung in there. We were incredibly undersized. I was so proud of that first year where we played in a semifinal against Kentucky, a team that went on to win a national championship. And that team sent a message right there that we didn't have to have great talent in order to be able to represent Auburn and to be able to compete. And I was so proud of that team for getting to the Saturday game.
I think you may remember, but I was with several guys, Charlie Miller and Steve Spencer and all. We got to come up to Kentucky to watch you guys play in Rupp Arena. And it was, man, I think for the first 5 to 8 minutes, I was sitting there thinking, how can they keep this pace up? This is incredible, because we would be running and they'd be running. And this is, I think at least 3 guys on that Kentucky team are in the NBA now.
Yeah.
And so that was phenomenal. And we did not win that game, but I think there was a lot of progress made that day in terms of the kids growing up.
Well, you look, if I don't believe in them, first and foremost, how can they believe in themselves? So we got a fine line to walk this year. On the one hand, I got to be, I've got to make sure our fan base understands we'll be the youngest team in the league and it's a rebuild. On the other hand, I got to make sure my guys are prepared and believe that I think we can still win. And here's how we can do it. And so that's a fine line to walk this year. But I think we're going to have to be a team that's going to have to get better a lot throughout the season. And our guys have paid the price. And, I could have brought in a really talented group of transfers this year, with two sophomores and 5 freshmen, only 7 guys returning. That roster is ripe for a couple of junior or senior transfers. But I just felt like those guys returning deserved an opportunity. And so we went with 5 freshmen, and they're all good players. And it's how I want to build our program, by bringing pro players in. Nothing wrong with transfers. There's nothing wrong with it.
I'm with you.
But I just felt like we're in a position to be able to build a stronger program by having a stronger foundation of having guys that stay here for a few years, grow and develop and get better. It also helps them get their degree.
I'm going to ask you, and I know Michael's probably another question. I just want to ask you one other thing. I'm going to go back to the COVID for a minute. How do you recruit with COVID?
Well, you know what? We've not been on the road since March 11th.
Wow.
And so we're, it's obviously we're Zooming all the time. We're watching, games on the internet and trying to do our evaluations. Look, it'll hurt us a little bit. I've got a lot of weaknesses, Tom. One of my strengths, I think, was the fact that I used to love to get out at gyms and go out there and lay my eyes on kids and find diamonds in the rough and guys that don't get a lot of recruiting attention and rely on my own instincts and just haven't been able to do that because we're not allowed to be out. And so We're still Zooming with prospects. We're still making phone calls. A lot of these kids are having to make decisions on where they go to school without ever visiting the campus and without seeing the campus. So it's been a challenge, but we're all in the same boat. And again, there I am speaking about the young people in high school, those kids that graduated last year. How about this crop of seniors? They're going to make decisions to go to college without ever making an official visit to a campus. So it's challenging.
Wow.
Michael, you got another question for Coach?
Absolutely. Coach, I want to talk to you about player development. And two players stick out in my mind, first of all, and you spoke about him, the little big man, Jared Harper, and Chuma Okeke. When Jared first came in and started as a freshman as a point guard, he used to drive me nuts with his decision making. And Thom and I used to talk about it all the time, and taking ill-timed shots. I won't necessarily say they were ill-advised, but they were ill-timed shots based on the flow of the game. And I was going bananas. But you were able to harness his talent and his confidence of being a little big man out there, to that the time that he became a junior and a senior, he took the shots at the right moment and got everybody else. How did you develop him? And then speak to Chuma Okeke, because as a freshman, he was somewhat considered overweight, a little bit slow. He transformed his body, and then the next year he was all-world power forward.
Man, Michael, if this thing on radio with Thom don't work out, you could be one of my assistant coaches, because you preach it, brother. Yeah, I need to put you in the living room. I need to get you a Zoom call with the next prospect. Listen, it's absolutely not about the coaches. Now my assistant coaches do a great job with player development. I'm telling you, they do a phenomenal job, and they spend a lot of time in the gym with these kids. You know why? Because they're all really good fathers, and they're developing their sons, and they're in the gym with their sons. And there's no better way of doing that. Ira Bowman is an incredible player development guy and teacher. Wes Flanagan, Stephen Pearl. Those guys have just done a tremendous job. I've got one of the best strength coaches in the country, and Damon Davis. So I surround my kids with really good players. As far as the thing with Jared, it's just about being patient. They got to play their way in and out of things. They got to experience different things. That's my team this year. They've got to be able to see it, experience it, see where they're going to have success, see where they can have some fail, see where those decisions to not step in and take that charge or make that foul or take that shot or pass on that play cost us a victory. That's got to hurt, burn, and then that's the way that, unfortunately, that's the other way, they will learn. But if again, it's about trust. And I will say this: our generation and a lot of the kids that I coached aren't very trusting. They've been promised a whole bunch of things. Some of it has been not all delivered. And so a couple things. And my players don't care. They don't care how much I know, they don't know how much I care. I better care about them. And number two, we got to trust each other. So I don't want them looking over to the bench at me when they take that shot. If they'll play defense, if we'll create possessions, if we'll play hard, if they'll play unselfishly, and they take a bad shot, so be it. I don't want them. I don't want them looking over the bench and worrying about making mistakes. I want them to play with some freedom. And that was a great case with Jared. Here's the deal with Chuma. My job also is not put the kids in positions to fail. So you're right. Chuma didn't come in very physically strong. That wasn't his deal. And he might have been carrying a little bit of weight that wasn't doing anything. But we fixed that. It took us 2 years to get his body right, but he deserves the credit because he was in the gym. He learned to eat better. All that stuff. His freshman year, everybody was wondering, why isn't Chuma doing more? I thought this guy was going to be this and that. I kept on praising Chuma, and fans were going, I don't see it. I just don't see it. Part of it was his unselfishness in the sense that Chuma didn't want to do things he couldn't do yet. And I didn't force him to do those things, in spite of getting some criticism from some people like in Atlanta said, man, he's supposed to be better than that. But if people saw him failing, scouts saw him trying to do things and failing, they went, oh, he can't do it. And they make their decisions. Instead, they wanted to see more. Now as a sophomore and towards the end of his sophomore year, he was ready. He started to do more. He did more. And as a result, with the exception of just P.J. Washington from Kentucky, who I think is a great, great player, Chuma literally dominated his matchup for the entire month of March. And And as a result, we go to the Final Four, and he gets picked 16th in the draft.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, I truly believe had Schumer not gotten hurt and had the referee called a double dribble when it was a double dribble or a kick ball, we would have been playing for the national championship. Great job that year. Fantastic job.
Yes, I agree. Totally.
The other thing, my last comment question is, and first of all, it's a comment, and you deserve accolades for this, is that you will morph or kind of redesign your style of play based on the talent that you have. Going back when you had Bryce, Jarrett, Dunbar, you could run a fast break and they could shoot a three off of a fast break. Okay. But then the next year when they were gone, you went to a little bit more of an inside out game and fed the big men down low and what have you. I have to commend you on that, but how do you figure out from year to year the talent that you have, which style of play you got to play to be most successful? And like you said, put them in the best position to be successful.
Yeah, that's great, Tom. I tell you what, I got my media around here wouldn't even begin to know how to ask that kind of a question. That's a great question. I'm sorry. I didn't. My media guys do a great job. They do a great job. But no, obviously that's very insightful, because 2 years ago we were a 3-point shooting team, and last year we're a 2-point shooting team. And so, Hayden Fry, who is a great coach at Iowa, he used to say, you got to scratch where it itches. You just got to scratch where it itches. Part of it's being 60 years old, Michael. Part of it's being doing this for a long time and just having an idea. Look, my job is to put the kids out there in positions to be successful. My system has got to be flexible. I've got to bend to their strengths and weaknesses, not have them conform to the way we have to play a certain way. Now, playing hard, playing unselfishly, playing for 94 feet, playing for 40 minutes, those are non-negotiables. And if you can't play with effort and energy, you can't play for me, period, the end. That's not negotiable. How we play, what we do, that'll based on the kids' abilities.
Great.
Coach, let me one of the things when I sent you the email and you agreed to come on the show, one of the last things we said to each other is, I said, we'll have fun. And you said, yeah, we're going to have some fun. And you believe in having fun, and so do I. But I read this about you, that on January 22nd, 2007, when you were at Tennessee, you attended a Lady Vols game with your upper body painted orange. In the days where you can't get away from that kind of stuff. But
no, nobody wants to see this 60-year-old body no more, Tom. It don't look like it used to now.
But you were basically supporting the women's basketball team, and you've always supported women's basketball, and that's certainly a compliment to you.
Well, you know what, we got to support each other, and we got to know who the opponent is, and we don't compete with each other here. That fits in with the Auburn family, and so it's easy, to be able to do those kind of things. And I think, I fail every day, and I ask God to forgive me and to help me do better. So I am very humble in that regard. But I am being watched by my student athletes. And so I can't ask my student athletes to do things that I'm not willing to do myself. So therefore, I will go to the other games. I will go women's soccer game or basketball game or volleyball game, not just the football games. We'll go to baseball. We'll do these things because I want my student athletes to do the same thing. I want them to be out there and participating in the community, serving in the community. It's like your kids. If your kids don't see you, tithing, if they don't see you donating your hard-earned money, then how can you expect them to? But if they see you do it as a leader of a family, then hopefully they've been raised right, and then they'll just carry that on. My job is to raise these kids right, to the best of my ability. So doing things like that just sort of fits.
Okay, Coach, you've got one quote that says effort and energy are non-negotiable. I agree with that. Coach, we want to thank you, man. It's been great. I appreciate it very much. We got a War Eagle from Becky Davis Gibson here. Appreciate having you. It is fun, and I look forward to the season. Look forward to seeing you at some point.
Well, you guys have got a great show and
Absolutely.
a great panel. And, we're at your service. Look, you can't serve if you're not called. So you guys, please call on me to be able to serve in any way. And wish you all the very best. Stay healthy, stay safe, and War Eagle.
War
Thank
Eagle.
you, Coach
Thank you, War
War
Eagle Coach.
All right. Okay, we're going to wind up here. I've got some closing comments from some great athletes about athletics. Billie Jean King, the great tennis player, says sports teaches you character. It teaches you to play by the rules. It teaches you to know what it feels like to win and lose. It teaches you about life. This one I found very interesting, and you'd never guess who said this. He said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. That is a quote by Michael Jordan. Never give up, never give in, and when the upper hand is ours, may we have the ability to handle the win with the dignity that we absorb the loss. That is the first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl, Doug Williams. And finally, George Halas, the great coach for the Chicago Bears, says nobody who ever gave his best ever regretted it. So that's our show for today. It's been a lot of fun having the coach on. I want to thank you all for being here with us. I want to thank Michael and Barbara, thank the communicator, Emily Hedrick, and thank Coach Pearl. And thank our sponsor, Best Girl. If you're interested in having your business be a sponsor of the show, get in touch with us at Thom@bestgirl.com. We want to thank Emily Hedrick, the communicator, our producer, and that is going to be a wrap. Enjoy yourself. Every day counts. Peace.